Hi, this is Mrs. Rodrigues with Solving One-Step Inequalities. So first let's take a look at this warm-up. The warm-up says select all expressions equivalent to 6x minus 24. So there's a couple of things I want to look at. First of all, anytime a problem says select all, that means there's more than one answer. Okay, there's more than one answer. Now, the other thing I want to take a look at is the word equivalent. Remember, equivalent means the same or equal to. Okay, so what this question's actually asking is which answers are equal to 6x minus 24 out of these four possibilities. And there's going to be more than one answer. So let's see. Let's take a look at the first one. Now, you'll notice that they factored out a number. So in order to see if any of these equal the 6x minus 24, we should use the distributive property and multiply the factored number back in to see if it matches. So for the first one, we have 6x minus 4. Oops, I'm sorry. We have 6 times x minus 4. So when we use the distributive property, remember, we're going to take that number and multiply it with the first term and then the second term. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 4 is 24. We have a minus sign here, so there's going to be a minus sign here. And sure enough, 6 times x minus 4 does equal 6x minus 24. Or I'm sorry, 6x minus 4. 6 times x minus 4 does equal 6x minus 24. So the first one works. Okay, now let's try the second one. The second one we have 2 times 3x minus 24. And we're going to multiply that 2 with the 3x and we get 6x minus 2 times 24, which is 48. That does not match 6x minus 24, so this one does not work. Oh, let's see what happened. Let's try going back in. There we go. Now for the next one, we have 3 times 2x minus 8. So 3 times 2x is going to be 6x. And 3 times 8 is going to be 24. You have a minus sign, so it's 6x minus 24. Yeah, it works. And then last but not least, we have 3 times 3x minus 21. We do 3 times 3x, which is 9x, and then 3 times 21, which is 63. 9x minus 63 is definitely not the same as 6x minus 24. So for this problem, the first one and the third one are equivalent or equal to 6x minus 24. All right, now moving on. Today we're solving one-step inequalities. Now the great news is that solving inequalities is exactly like solving equations. We just need to add some graphing at the end and the symbol is going to look a little different. So let's go ahead and start today's lesson. Inequalities can be solved just like an equation, but with a few exceptions. The goal when solving an inequality is to isolate the variable. That means get x by itself, or whatever the variable is, which we also do when we solve equations. Number 1, isolate the variable by using the inverse or opposite operation, just like with equations. Number 2, the inequality must remain balanced, just like with equations. So we're going to once again be drawing that river. And number 3, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality sign is flipped. Okay, so this is one of the small differences between inequalities and equations is because we have those symbols, the greater than and less than symbols. In the case of multiplying with negatives, we flip the sign, multiplying or dividing. However, we're actually going to cover this topic in our next lesson. So we're not going to worry about multiplying and dividing with negatives today. That will be tomorrow, okay? Today we're just focusing on one-step inequalities with multiplying and dividing by positive numbers. So before we begin, I want to go ahead and write our steps again for how to solve these. So I'm just making a little line so I can get some room. All right, so steps. Number 1, draw the river. Number 2, remember we're going to do order of operations backwards. And number 3, we do the opposite operation. And then number 4 is for the inequalities. We graph. Okay, so this is for inequalities only. But you'll notice all the other steps are exactly the same as equations, okay? Now, today we're just doing one-step problems, not multi-step. That's going to come later on this week. So we don't have to worry about doing order of operations backwards because there's only going to be one operation, but we're still going to do the opposite every time. So you'll notice very similar to equations except for number 4, that graphing part. So let's go ahead and do the first example. So solve each inequality, check your answer, and then graph the solution. So let's take a look at number 1. Number 1 has n plus 5 is less than or equal to 16. And remember, I know it's less than because if I turn this into a Pac-Man, Pac-Man always eats the bigger number. So that means 16 is bigger than n plus 5. And because we have this line underneath, that's the or equals sign. So 16 is greater than or equal to n plus 5. Now for our steps. Step 1, draw the river. We don't have to worry about number 2, order of operations, because there's only one operation, right? So we're just going to go ahead and jump to step 3, which is do the opposite operation. So if this is plus 5, the opposite would be to subtract 5 from both sides. The 5's cancel out, and we get n is less than or equal to 11. And that is our answer. So notice, exactly the same as solving equations, except instead of drawing an equal sign, we have a less than or equal to sign. Now to check our answer, we said that n is less than or equal to 11. So I can choose any number I want for n as long as it's smaller than or equal to 11. So because you can choose anything, you should choose easy numbers, right? So I'm going to choose 1. 1 is definitely smaller than 11. So if n equals 1, then 1 plus 5, now I'm putting it back in the original equation, 1 plus 5 should be less than or equal to 16. Well, 1 plus 5 is 6. And 6 is definitely less than or equal to 16. It's less than, right? So it works, it makes sense, it's true, so it's correct. Now when it comes time to graph, remember you're graphing the answer. You're graphing the n is less than or equal to 11, okay? You're graphing the answer. So I'm going to put 11 in the middle, and then you just want to pick a couple of numbers that are bigger and a couple of numbers that are smaller. Remember, you don't have to do a complete number line. I put my bubble on the number that we got, which is 11, because, oopsie, let's put that back. Because we have this equal symbol attached to it, that means that our bubble's going to be filled in. And then if n is the numbers that are smaller than 11, my arrow is going to point towards all the numbers smaller than 11. And that's how we do number 1. All right, let's try number 2. So for number 2, step 1, draw the river. We don't have to worry about order of operations. We're going to go straight to number 3 and do the opposite. So C minus 8, the opposite would be to add 8. The 8's cancel out, and I get C is greater than 14 plus 8, which is 22. Now, if C is any number bigger than 22, right, I can choose any number bigger than 22 to check my answer. So in this case, I'm going to say that C equals, I don't know, what does C equal? C can equal 30. That's definitely bigger than 22. All right, so if C equals 30, now I'm going to put it back into the original equation, and I'm going to get 30 minus 8 is greater than 14. Well, 30 minus 8 is 22. 22 is bigger, than 14. So yes, we did it correctly. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph my answer. I'm going to put 22 in the middle. I'm going to choose a couple of numbers that are bigger and a couple of numbers that are smaller. Okay. I'm going to put my bubble on our answer, which is 22. It's going to stay open because I don't have that equal sign under the greater than. And if C is all the numbers bigger than 22, then my arrow is going to point towards all the numbers bigger than 22. Okay. Let's take a look at 13. Step 1, draw the river. Now we're going to do the opposite. If that's 12 times G, then the opposite would be to divide by 12 on both sides. The 12's cancel out, and I get G is less than 48 divided by 12, which is 4. So to check my answer, if G is the numbers less than 4, I want to pick something that's going to be easy to test. So in the original equation, we have 12 times G. So I want something that's smaller than 4, but that's easy to use if I'm multiplying by 12. So if you're a little shaky on your 12s, choose a number you know. So for example, something smaller than 4, I'm going to choose 1. Because I know 1 times anything is that number. So 12 times 1 is just going to be 12. And 12 is less than 48. So we did that correctly. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph my answer. 4 will go in the middle. I'll have a couple of numbers bigger, a couple of numbers smaller, and my bubble on that 4. Now there's no equal sign on that less than symbol, so the bubble stays open. And G is all the numbers smaller than 48, so smaller than 4, so my arrow is going to go towards all the numbers smaller than 4. All right, let's take a look at number 4. Step 1, we draw the river. This is P divided by 3 is greater than 9. Well, the opposite of division is multiplication. 3's cancel out, and I get P is greater than 27. So if P is all the numbers greater than 27, and I can choose one to check my answer, I'm going to choose a number that's divisible easily by 3, because we want this to be easy, right? So if 3 has to go into it evenly, I'm going to choose something simple like 30. 30 is bigger than 27, and I know that 30 divided by 3 is 10. So now I'm going to pop it into the original equation, and I get 30 divided by 3 is greater than 9. 30 divided by 3 is 10, and 10 is greater than 9, so it's correct. Now I'm going to graph my answer. 27 is going to go in the middle. I'm going to choose a couple of numbers bigger, a couple of numbers smaller, and I'm going to put my bubble on 27. There's no equal sign under that symbol, so the bubble stays open. And if P is all the numbers bigger than 27, then I'm going to point my arrow towards all the numbers bigger than 27. All right, now it's your turn. On the next page, we have 5 through 12. Okay, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and then do 5 through 12 on your own. When you're ready to check your answers, go ahead and restart the video and see if you got them right. Now, 5 and 6, you're checking them just because I want to make sure that you know how to check your answers if you want to on tests or quizzes, or to check your answers on your homework and stuff. But 7 through 12, you don't have to check your answers, you just have to solve, okay? So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, welcome back. So you were supposed to do these on your own. So for 5, I'm going to draw the river. This is 4 times k, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I get k is less than or equal to 5.5. To check my answer, if k is less than or equal to 5.5, I'm going to choose k to be 0 because it's an easy number. 4 times 0, is it less than 22? Yes, because it equals 0. So we did it right. So now I'm going to graph my answer, and I'm going to put 5, 6, 7, and then 4 and 3. I know 5.5 goes halfway. There is the equal sign, so my bubble is filled in. K is all the numbers smaller than 5.5, so my arrow is going to point towards all the numbers smaller than 5.5. Now, for number 6, draw the river. This is S divided by 2, so the opposite would be to multiply both sides by 2. These cancel out, and I get S is greater than 10. Okay? If S is all the numbers greater than 10, and in the original equation we have to divide it by a 2, I'm going to pick a number that's easily divisible by 2. So I'm going to choose 12. I'm going to make S equals 12. That gives me 12 divided by 2 is greater than 5. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and yes, 6 is greater than 5, so that's correct. Now I'm going to graph my answer. S is greater than 10. I'm going to choose a couple of numbers bigger, a couple of numbers smaller. I'm going to put my bubble on 10. There's no or equal sign on that. It's just the greater than symbol, so my bubble stays open. And S is greater than 10, so I'm going to point my arrow in all the numbers bigger than 10. All right, moving on. For 7, river, divide both sides by 7. You get X is greater than or equal to 5. 5 is going to go in the middle. I'm going to choose a couple of numbers bigger, a couple of numbers smaller, and put my bubble. We have the equal sign, so my bubble's going to be filled in. X is all the numbers bigger than 5, so I'm going to point my arrow in the direction of the numbers bigger than 5. 8. Draw my river. The opposite of minus 16 is to add 16. These cancel out, and I get X is less than 27. 27 is going to go in the middle, and I'm going to choose a couple of numbers bigger, a couple of numbers smaller, and my bubble is going to go on the 27. Because there's no equal sign on that less than symbol, my bubble stays open. X is all the numbers smaller than 27, so my arrow is going to go towards the left. For number 9, draw my river. Now remember, it doesn't matter which side the X is on, right? Because X equals 2 is the same thing as 2 equals X. So don't let it throw you off. For number 9, the X is on the other side. You just do it the same way. This is 8 is greater than or equal to X plus 10. So the opposite of plus 10 would be to subtract 10. Because remember, we want to get X by itself. 8 minus 10 is negative 2. So it's negative 2 is greater than or equal to X. Okay? Which is the same thing as X is less than or equal to negative 2. Now I'm going to graph my answer. I'm going to put a couple that are bigger, a couple that are smaller, and put my bubble. We have the equal sign, so it's going to be filled in. And if negative 2 is bigger than X, I'm going to point, oops, That means x is all the numbers smaller than -2. 10. Draw the river. This is x divided by 8, so the opposite would be to multiply both sides by 8. Okay, these cancel out, and we get x is greater than -3 times 8, which is -24. Remember, a negative times a positive is a negative. Now I'm going to graph, put a couple that are smaller, a couple that are bigger, put my bubble. There's no equal sign, so it stays open, and x is all the numbers bigger than 24. So my arrow is going to go to the right. For 11, we do the river. 6 times x, the opposite would be to divide by 6. And we get x is greater than or equal to -18, because we have a negative divided by a positive, which is going to be a negative. Now I'm going to graph it, and I'm going to put a couple that are bigger and a couple that are smaller. I put my bubble on -18. We do have the equal sign, so my bubble's going to be filled in. X is bigger than -18, so x is all the numbers bigger than -18. My arrow is going to go to the right. Now for 12, draw my river. The opposite of +7 would be to subtract 7. These cancel out, and I get -22. Oops. -22 is less than or equal to x. Notice that Pac-Man's trying to eat the x, so if I want to write it the other way, I could do it. I just need to remember to flip the symbol so that the Pac-Man's still trying to eat x. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph it, put a couple that are smaller, couple that are bigger, put my bubble on the 22. We do have the equal sign attached to our symbol, so this will be filled in. X is larger than -22, so we're going to point it to the right. Okay? Go ahead and pat yourself on the back if you got them all correct. All right, moving on. So for this next page, honestly, it's just straight practice. 1 through 10. You're just going to go through and you're just going to practice solving these one-step inequalities and then graphing them. I want you to go ahead and pause the video when you're ready to check, and then do all the problems 1 through 10. And then when you're ready to check to see if you did them correctly, go ahead and restart the video. Pause the video now. Welcome back. All right, so for the first one, you should have gotten y is less than or equal to -7. I would put my bubble on the -7. We have the equal sign, so my bubble's filled in. Y is all the numbers less than, so my arrow's going to go to the left. For number 2, you should have gotten n is greater than or equal to 5. I'm going to put my bubble on 5. We have the equal sign, so my bubble's filled in. And if if n is all the numbers greater than or equal to 5, I'm going to point to the right. For 3, you should have gotten d is less than 3. Put my bubble on 3. There is no equal sign, so the bubble stays open. D is all the numbers smaller, so my arrow is going to go to the left. For number 4, you should have gotten r is greater than 3. Put my bubble on 3. There's no equal sign, the bubble stays open. R is greater than 3, so my arrow is going to point to the right. For 5, you should have gotten c is greater than or equal to -1. I'm going to put my bubble on -1. We do have the equal sign, so my bubble's going to fill in. And if c is all the numbers bigger than or equal to -1, then my arrow is going to go to the right. For 6, you should have gotten a is less than 4. put my bubble on 4. There is no equal sign, so the bubble stays open. A is all the numbers smaller than 4, so my arrow goes to the left. 7, you should have gotten W is greater than or equal to -7. Put my bubble on -7. We do have the equal sign, so it's going to be filled in. And then if W is all the numbers bigger than or equal to -7, my arrow is going to go to the right to all the numbers bigger. For 8, you should have gotten Q is less than 6. So we're going to put the bubble on 6. There's no equal sign, it stays open, and Q's all the numbers smaller, so my arrow goes to the left. For 9, you should have gotten A is less than 4. Put my bubble on 4. There is no equal sign, so my bubble stays open. A is all the numbers smaller than 4, so my arrow goes to the left. And last but not least, 10. You should have gotten R is greater than 6. Put my bubble on 6. There is no equal sign, so the bubble stays open. R is all the numbers bigger than 6, so I'm going to point my arrow to the right in the direction of all the numbers bigger than 6. Okay, fantastic. Now, this next part is your homework. Okay, so go ahead and get started on your homework. And remember, if you still have questions, if you need extra help, if you're confused, don't forget you can ask me during class or you can make an appointment to see me during office hours. I hope you have a great day. Bye.